Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 8 of Movies and Mayhem. Today, we'll update you on our current project. Aaron will talk lessons learned, rent or buy. We'll review the movie You Were Never Really Here before Chris wraps it all up with some trivia.
Movies and Mayhem.
Hello, all our friends. It's another bi-weekly podcast from us, your favorite people ever. I'm just kidding, but really, who else are you listening to right now as COVID keeps us locked indoors? Anyways, I am Kate, your resident director, screenwriter, and all-around brat. We have Aaron, your resident composer, director of photography, that sound guy.
Hello.
And then we have, last but not least, Chris, resident food services, producer, and anything Aaron and I don't want to do.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, so as you probably see, the world is slowly falling to pieces again with COVID, and we are not left out of that loop, which means we have new orders to keep in our homes, to not talk to people, to not hug people, to not kiss people, let alone not film.
And not look at each other. Okay, that's not really part of it.
I feel like you can pretty much catch COVID by just looking at someone right now. But that's not going to stop us, is it, guys?
Nope. We have some works in the progress. We're still moving. Well, okay.
He hasn't fully finished his coffee yet. I'm just going to...
I do have some coffee in front of me. I'm exhausted.
It was that soccer game you watched before we started this, isn't it?
Ooh, that was rough.
Physically demanding.
Yeah, it was. My heart's still beating. Orlando City did win, by the way.
Okay, well, thanks for ruining it for everyone, even though this hasn't aired yet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, by the time this airs, they would have won the championship anyway. So we're all good.
So even though there are restrictions on hugging our loved ones and being close with them, the one restriction they have not cut down is that we can still congregate as up to five people outdoors.
Yay.
And you know what that means, everyone? We can still film our movie.
Which I am excited about.
Right now, we can meet up with social distance of 5 people. Luckily, our current project only requires 2 actors, and they live together. Oh, so they don't need to stay 5 feet away or 6 feet away from each other. And then the 3 of us.
And the great part, too, is we all know each other's quarantine practices. So there's no fear or concern of somebody infected. So that's the great part.
The funny thing is we're pretty much all quarantine bubble together.
Pretty much.
So it's not really anything.
Aaron practically stays at our place.
His apartment's just like an extra bedroom on our house.
Yeah.
So with that, we are continuing to barrel on with our movie. We have the tiny little script of nothing. There's barely even a script. Do we even need a script for this thing?
I mean, not really, but it's always good to get everything prepared.
Well, I put words on paper.
Yeah.
Just so the actors kind of know what's going on. I can hand them this and be like, this is kind of what you're going to be doing.
And we did do you guys did a little rough draft.
Yes, we're going to talk about that next. One of the things that we really wanted to focus on with this movie, because Aaron asked everyone, that was Chris hitting the microphone with his coffee cup.
Sorry, I am off my game today, everyone.
I'm just going to narrate this whole thing today.
They're going to put duct tape on my mouth in a second and tie me so I don't mess anything up.
The one day you're out of it.
Sedated.
The one day you're out of it, you're the most talkative. So one thing that Aaron, back to what I was trying to say, thanks, Chris.
Welcome.
The one thing that Aaron really wanted to focus on this time, and I also agreed because I think it will really help us to keep to the vision and to have a clear idea going in, because we have hit rainy season. We're going to be filming this outside, which means we need to be quick and precise in our filming, is to storyboard and have a clear list of shots and angles and approach that we're going to do, so we can pretty much show up on set and really have a game plan. And so instead of doing traditional storyboarding where you would hire an artist and you would draw them out, we actually decided, Chris and I, to go out to the locations, the 2 of us, and make a mock recording of the entire vignette.
I have to say, I had a blast, especially because the last storyboard we did were stick figures on sticky notes on a science, science poster board, yeah. And we put them up. So this is night and day different.
Yeah, I think I think this kind of process, I know I'm just speaking for myself. I feel like it works a lot better. And it gives us kind of something immediate and visual. And even though it's not, quote unquote perfect and set up as far as like lighting and camera or whatever, but
mocking kind of my camera skills, huh? I shot on an iPhone.
We were one actor out, so it had to
How can you? We used a stuffed elephant to represent the other actor.
I did enjoy the elephant looking at that.
Tantar is going to be so mad at you. He's not going to look at you.
I'm surprised he's not Babar.
No, Tantar from the... Yeah.
Isn't Babar like an elephant too? I don't know.
I thought it was Tantar in the movie.
No, I'm thinking of like a kid's show.
Oh, I'm thinking Jungle Book.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't know. I don't know that.
If it's not Tantar, Chris lied to me.
I'm sure it is.
Oops.
Okay, it better be Tantar. You're the one that told me it was Tantar when we bought this.
I don't remember.
This elephant means a lot to us too. Chris bought it for me when he was away on internship, and it was supposed to like snuggle with me at night and keep me warm and cozy and replace him.
He had a long trunk.
Pause for my face turning red. But yes, so Chris and I went out with my iPhone one day, and we went to all the locations that we kind of had talked about to scout and do, and we filmed the different chunks, and I sent them to Aaron. But before I sent them to Aaron, I also kind of compiled my own little movie.
Yeah, it was good.
I had a blast. It was so much fun just to like kind of piece them together for what the director would want.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it was honestly a lot of fun recording without Aaron, since he gets all the like notoriety of this is how the camera's going to work and this is what we're going to do. I kind of got to like rule the roost and control the show and boss Chris around.
You were like a little kid in a candy shop while we were doing that. You're like prancing around, so excited. Like, oh, this is so much fun. I love this.
Well, and I think it's really good because it kind of gets you in that kind of headspace too, kind of not only for like directing, but giving you more experience, kind of figuring out the framing and all that stuff.
And though the movie isn't the greatest quality, I can say, I do think that from this experience, you can do a lot with even the little bit we had.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, we did, except for being a little rough, we made the vignette.
Yeah, definitely.
And honestly, with the elephant filling in as the second actor, I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also takes a lot less time to film video rather than like drawing frame by frame out. Obviously, they're two different formats and, there's pros and cons to either one. But I think to get a solid foundation, it's a pretty good solution.
Well, I do have to say, it's a great way to show that the average person can still practice and go out. And like we were saying, me going out there and getting to do the camera angles and getting to play around as the director really got to see what the process, what it would look like on the screen. So now when Aaron and I got together today before filming this podcast, we watched the video together and we really got to discuss and also brought in different ideas. Like there's this one shot that I fell in love with that I played around with. And I'm like, well, sorry, Aaron, you're outvoted. You're going to do the shot like this.
But it does solidify the vision and kind of help director of photography and directors kind of come together in a singular vision. I think it helps. It hopefully will make the project for the better. I
think that was the number one thing we really lacked in our last project. Is it was very hard for me to communicate what I saw in my head and the ultimate image I saw in my head to what, and like I didn't have the right words either to be able to say to you, like, this is what I want. This is the emotion I want to evoke. This is where the comedy needs to fall, or this is where this moment emotion needs to fall. And I think especially in going without you as well, Aaron, and it was just me controlling the roost, I was able to completely like show all that.
And experiment and kind of figure out what works and what doesn't for you.
So you could see what was in my head right away. And then you can take what's already in your head and mesh it so we can have like a really cohesive movie. And you already have what I'm trying to see. So when you do it with what you're seeing, we can really make like a really good movie. Yeah. And kind of add notes to that and stuff like that. I think it's not uncommon for that kind of interaction to happen. It takes a lot of time to kind of get each person's kind of language and kind of synchronize it, so to speak, between those two people. So it's definitely something that is beneficial. So definitely, I'm going to say a point. So if you are filming movies out there and you are an amateur wanting to do it, take the time for the storyboarding, because based on our last project to this one, I think it's going to make a huge difference. And I already feel like we're more melded and ready to like kick it off. Yeah. And combining that with like color palettes and other kind of mood boards, maybe taking frames from other movies to kind of
getting all of those ideas kind of into a package just helps solidify everything.
Well, on another note too, not even seeing like the storyboarding and what's in my mind to your mind, we're also seeing like you're able to start composing already to like have like the emotion of, you know, the sound and the mixing as well. And it lets us see where we might need to have filler. Like you already notice things about the beginning where you want more of this filler and this setup to the movie, or when we need some B shots of certain like effects or sound effects. Like we already have this clear idea that we can really go in and catch it all on the first round.
We can see kind of places where it needs a little bit more or a little bit less, and kind of how things cut together, and it always ends up generating ideas.
So as a side note, one thing I wanted to say is when you're starting a production crew and you're filming, that you really need to learn to swallow your pride. So that was one thing that I learned during the storyboarding.
That's the other thing that we didn't actually tell Aaron about yet. Chris came to a revelation while doing this. I did.
So shout out to Tantar, top-notch acting skills, which made me realize how much of an F actor I am, right? Not D-list. I'm talking about F-list. So I have swallowed my pride and I have realized I will not be an actor for us. I don't think I can do it. I tried very hard to do the best acting I could, and I fell flat. And if you guys ever get to see this storyboard...
Oh, I plan on sharing a bit of this.
I'm just going to say, have fun.
You got to have fun with it. It's a journey, you know?
Well, here's the thing is, I am so excited to always help with the storyboarding. I will always be in that fill-in actor to help with the storyboarding because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
But I will never be on screen.
I'll never say never.
I will. Okay.
Well, you're already in this movie. You have a tiny role in this one, don't forget.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I do. Yeah.
You have a very vital role of raising your hand and waving.
I do. Hopefully I can pull it off. Am I supposed to do like the queen wave or like...
Well, we'll
That's something you got to define in your character and develop it.
You need to have a whole backstory.
Create a background. Yeah, exactly.
I'll do that. Yeah.
Just stand in front of the mirror and practice.
We got to get you some like dad bod clothes or something like that.
Ooh, I'm thinking like put a little weight on his middle and stuff a pillow up there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like Jim Carrey's character where he's in that like insane asylum and he's wearing the, you know.
I was thinking you were going to say something more along the lines of where he's in that dome. And he's really a reality TV show.
Oh, yes.
And you're like the neighbor that's like, hey. Yeah, I don't know.
No ab-Levine lines here. Your role needs to be silent.
I'll stay silent now too. No, but the point is, I just do want to make a point of that. You always have to pivot when you're doing filming, and you know, not just for me, but like for example, when Aaron and Kate are working together, and as the director and the film guy.
Director of photography / camera operator / cinematographer.
The caffeine has not kicked in yet, okay? But the point is that like you two have to work together, and then there are times where one's going to have a better idea than the other. And so you kind of work together to make sure that
it's a collaborative process.
Yeah, it's a collaborative process. So, yeah. So my acting days are over. My dreams are over. My hopes and dreams are gone.
It's okay.
Always work on skills. Always get better. Always improve. Never quit.
There's plenty for you to do. All the stuff we don't want to do. Don't worry. And, since we're getting the date close to filming this, I would start working on the craft services now.
Well, I don't think I can because of COVID,
Well, I would start planning a list, timeline of when we're going to get hungry. Make sure you got the 4 food groups, sugar, salt, all this stuff. Just make sure.
These are different food groups than I'm previously aware of. I've been dieting this whole time completely wrong.
And with that, we are going to need lots of snacks because I want to tell you all of you to more of a reminder is that next month, dun da da, is going to be the Sundance Film Festival. And what makes this year so much different, and one positive in all the light of these dark times, is that because of COVID, it's going to be online for one of the first times, which means that around the country, we can all get a chance to watch it.
I'm so glad. Like last year, that was the first time that they tested it. They definitely kind of had a rocky start to it, but I've been wanting this to happen for a while now because it's so hard to kind of like go to these film festivals and they cost a lot of money and time and effort and all that stuff, and to be able to still view everybody's hard work throughout the year. in a streaming format is awesome.
I'm really excited. And just to tell you guys, this is not sponsored. This is just our pure excitement about it, because what our goal is, we are going to have a Sundance only podcast where we're just going to talk all things Sundance. So I'm very excited to feature that for all of you, because we are going to be on our couches binging the Sundance Film Festival. I'm really excited too, because it is the Sundance this year is actually under new director.
Oh, wow.
So this is her first year, which also makes me really excited, because I want to see what she's going
Big shoes to fill.
Exactly. And I want to see, like, since she's new, is she going to be innovative with, like, is this going to become a thing now where it's more open to outside people, that we're not just trying to like shove into that little Utah snow village? And I wanted to read something from one of her press releases about the upcoming film festival. It's pretty much is that there will be a brand new platform to allow online audiences the opportunity to view the full program, take part in discussions and special live events. And then certain city hubs, depending, I guess, what COVID's going to be like in certain cities, they are going to offer certain selections from the festival paired with the city and theater's own programming that they have, which I think is cool too.
So there's like viewings, limited viewings or whatever. Okay.
And pretty much what I did, which I recommend for everyone, is sign up for the newsletter, because they're going to be announcing like how purchase options and how you're going to be able to view it. And
what's that website?
I guess it's Sundance Film Festival. I don't know the website. The one thing I didn't prepare.
Ill prepared.
Sorry. I'm sorry. That's one thing I did not prepare for all of you. But
How dare you?
Pretty sure we could just Google it.
Sure.
It's Film Festival. But anyway, so I'm excited. I signed up for the newsletter. I'm all rip-roaring and ready to go. And I just want to tell you guys so you can be prepared.
What's the date? So
January. Thank you. January 28th
Awesome.
and the 3rd. I did have that prepared.
So good.
So next month, get you guys all prepared. So we're ready. And then we'll have that podcast for you guys to talk about all things film festival. And with that, I think it's time to get some lessons learned. Don't you think so, Aaron?
I think so. All right. This week's Tech Talk. Lessons learned, rent or buy. So there's a lot of gear that is required of filming, obviously.
All that gear's at our house right now.
And there's a lot of lessons that get learned by purchasing gear. Most of the time, everybody has a budget, and most of the time it is never enough for the gear that you want.
Aaron doesn't want to think he has a budget.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this. Very
true. There's so many tools that you want to be able to use and for particular instances and whatnot. So, it just seems endless. But there does come a time where you kind of have to make a decision of yourself, which is to invest into the gear or rent it. And there's plenty of places to rent. There's pros and cons to both of these. And I'm not here to say one way or another how you should do it. Each project's different. Every person has a different ethos on it. But from my experience in gear, I kind of decided to purchase most of my gear and not really rent, mainly because most of the rental fees seemed kind of crazy to me at the time. And combining with that, I wanted to have the gear at all times ready so that I could, use it to practice and not have to go along the way of like placing the rental order, going and picking it up, bringing it back, and then having to return it after X amount of days that I rent it. But I've learned that there's a few things that are probably not too bad to rent and things that you might want to own. First lesson, and this is something that is not going to be easy, but tripod. It's probably the most afterthought kind of thing, but is very, very crucial, because if you can make a video or a movie or a film or a project where you don't move the camera hardly at all, you're able to kind of, you learn very fast on how to frame and what works and stuff like that. If you just bring a whole bunch of motion into it, it can be decent, but it can also be a disaster. So it's much easier to make things artificially more interesting by injecting more motion into it. But when you put it on sticks, which is tripod movie lingo is sticks, things kind of solidify, and you have to be very, very direct with how you're going to move people through the frame and how everything interacts. So thinking about purchasing a tripod, I was like, well, I'm not going to go for a cheap one because I've heard the horror stories behind that. So I went for
horror stories.
Yeah.
And you're putting
on a
so
tripod?
much tripod. Oh yeah. And you're putting like your baby on top of this thing.
Because you put all of this camera, this like huge investment on there, and you don't want it to fall off. So
yes,
it's
horror stories.
But also there, video tripod heads are not created equal, fluid heads rather. And so if you go cheap, it's very, very hard to get a fluid kind of panning motion. If you need to kind of move the camera at all even though it's in a stationary position, but like pan it, or go up and down, it's really hard to get a smooth kind of, motion out of it on cheaper tripods. And I thought, okay, well, I'll buy a mid-tier one. So I ended up investing like $500-600 on a tripod. And it ended up being, in my opinion, just as bad as a cheap one. So now I'm looking at one that's 20 times as much. So I learned my lesson to, like, if you're investing in this gear, don't cheap out on anything if you really can, because it will either won't last or it won't perform like you want it to. And the last thing that you want to do on set is have issues and troubleshoot with your gear, because it's wasted time, and it's such a crucial amount of time in that area. You always want to be very familiar with your gear before set and know how to operate all that stuff. So if you don't have a tripod, it's not the end of the world to just rent one. Obviously, depending on where your location is, you might have a whole bunch of camera stores and film rental equipment businesses around you, or you might not. But with the internet being as it is right now, there's some great resources online, and it's not even just relegated to actual businesses. People on a person-to-person basis can create accounts and rent out their gear that they've invested in to people, which is an awesome resource.
What is this resource that you're talking about?
There's a few of them. One that's off the top of my head is sharegrid.com. And, everybody can, put a price for what they want to rent out their gear. So somebody may rent at a higher price than somebody else, and there's, a general average market value of that rental. So, and then they'll ship it to you, and then you can ship it back to them. So it works relatively well. But, some things are more expensive, some things aren't. And it all depends on what you want to have in your possession as far as investments go. So if you've got like a small setup that doesn't really change a whole bunch, might be a good idea to buy a few C-stands, a light, kind of, get your basis set up, and that way you don't have to constantly rent it. But if you're doing projects and maybe they're a little bit more sparse and fewer in between, it might be a better idea financially if you rent stuff. And C-stands being as important as they are on film sets, a good quality one is, $150 to $250, and light stands as well, $200 to $300. So they're kind of a good amount of money, but if you rent them, they can be, $8 per day. So those, along with Apple boxes, which are plywood constructed boxes in different shapes and sizes used for leveling stuff and raising stuff up and mounting lights too, and all kinds of different uses. All of these kind of generic, commonplace film equipment that's necessary for set can be pretty affordable by renting it. But it really just comes down to, is it worth it to you to do the whole logistics thing of either having stuff shipped to you and shipping it back, or picking it up and returning it in certain days, that you might not want to deal with that, and then you might want to buy stuff. But so yeah, there's pros and cons to each one, and obviously projects differ in their needs, but yeah.
So pretty much you're saying that to really focus on, if you're gonna start building your arsenal, would be your camera. I mean, that makes sense, whatever your recording device is. And then
actually, I would say lenses before camera, because camera technology changes so much, and there's always new things coming out. That's the thing that's going to depreciate the most, like a car. obviously there's still cameras that are being used that were, built 10, 20 years ago or whatever, obviously. But
I can attest that my camera's 13 years old.
but lenses, people still use 100-year-old lenses. So those are the things that are going to really hold their value as far as use cases go. And, each one has a different look to it. So depending on your project that you might want different lenses, but those are the things that are going to stay with you probably the longest.
Are you giving a shout out to the lighthouse again?
No.
I'm just teasing because they're using such old lenses.
No, yeah, it's just with everything, whether it's anamorphics or whatnot, but they're also not the cheapest thing either. So it's definitely a slow gathering. But yeah, I would say.
So especially like if they want to use something special or it's something they're not going to use regularly, it's definitely a good idea to rent, and like definitely you trust renting systems
for sure.
Going through the renting process and trying that out instead of just automatically thinking you have to buy everything off right away.
Right, exactly. And with the buying stuff, don't cheap out on stuff. Like there's things to cheap out on, but there's also other things that you don't want to cheap out on. And if you can help it, just. I know it hurts, but it's like a cry once, buy once kind of thing. So
pretty much it's better to rent and to then buy the best that you can when you can, instead of just running out and having whatever you want and it's cheap and doesn't work.
Unless you're, getting, unless you just want to practice with stuff, then, rental costs can be kind of more expensive that way other than the other way around. And if you only film once a year, it's definitely going to be a good idea to rent. So it just depends.
And on a side note, could you build an Apple box?
Yeah, you could.
Okay.
I'm sure there's specifications that you can look up and buy that. Harder to build a C-stand unless you're really good at welding and whatnot.
No, but like an Apple box is just like plywood.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure there's things that you can really, with certain set pieces and stuff, really get creative and.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're on a budget and you need diffusion instead of buying something that's pre-built, you can pick up a frosted shower curtain at Target or wherever for pretty cheap, and or muslin, bleached muslin or unbleached muslin at a fabric store.
And we bought like moving blankets for sound barriers and even light barriers when we were doing
it. Yeah, they work as a good negative fill, so you don't have to spend the expensive cost of getting like a 4x4 Matthews floppy or something like that.
Yeah, so you can definitely get creative. There's a lot that you can find in your local hardware or craft store to help with low budget films too. And with that, we will move on to our movie review.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Shh, movie review.
Touted as one of the most violent films you'll ever watch, though barely any violence is shown on the screen, You Were Never Really Here is thought of as a masterful show of PTSD and trauma, written and directed by a female, Leanne Ramsey. I am so excited to talk about this one today. But before I get into all the storytelling and character stuff that I am dying to spill, I'll let Aaron have his moment in the spotlight.
All right. So yeah, like Kate was saying, the director and screenplay was Lynn Ramsey.
Oh, did I say Leanne? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine.
Lynn.
I can't even remember what you said.
I'm so embarrassed right now.
And the cinematographer was Thomas Townend, and the score was Johnny Greenwood.
And yeah, Johnny Greenwood.
Yeah.
I'm going to just say this real quick, is the lead guitarist and keyboardist for Radiohead.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And the camera that they used was the Arri Alexa. They were recording with Arri RAW, which is a RAW format rather than a log format. And the lenses they were using were Panavision C and E series anamorphics and a 200 millimeter macro.
How many anamorphics is that now?
So many anamorphics.
Everyone just uses anamorphics.
Anamorphics are beautiful. And then Lynn wasn't a fan of getting like anamorphic lens flares or whatever. So when they're filming the day exteriors, they were filming at T4 and T5.6 to kind of stop down and get more depth of field in the picture and kind of reduce the lens flares as well. And to counteract that, as far as lighting goes, they would just bump up the ISO to 1200 to 1600 because the Arri Alexa could do that. And the lighting they use this was kind of before the synonymous, ubiquitous use of the Arri sky panels, which were LED lights. So this was before they kind of were just commonplace on set. So they were still using 1.2K to 18K HMIs and 1K to 10K tungsten. And they had a set of Kino flows and a LED tube that was magnetic. That was by Quasar Science. So there really wasn't that much to say as far as the technicals. Pretty standard kind of setup stuff, but it was just done really well. The filming, the tips of the hat to The Godfather, the great use of mirrors, and lots of different kind of points of view that the frame was being placed, and it all came together really, really well. I before Kate gets into the story thing, I wanted to say that there was a great thematic use of grounding technique in this movie.
And what do you mean by that?
The grounding technique is used as a mechanism for dissociative kind of issues with generally with PTSD. And so the characters would count down from whatever number, and that kind of helps ground them to reality. And I felt that there was a great thematic use for that.
I mean, I think all around this movie, maybe not visually in the sense of like, oh, Lighthouse, where we had like all these visual, like, nod to the gods of just great cinematography. I think that from a character standpoint, even film decision standpoint, and just everything that they did, it was so creative and so well done. I don't know how much this rumor is right or true or not. But the rumor is that one of the reasons they didn't show violence, besides the fact that Ramsey did not have a lot of experience shooting action films with these, action scenes, the gore and the blood and all those special effects, they also didn't have the budget for it.
Right. Yeah. That stuff is really, really expensive.
Yeah. So to get around all that, they decided to show the aftermath of the violence, which in itself, it's honestly, you don't realize how much you're sitting in violence and how violent the thing is until it's over and you're like, wow, I really didn't see any.
Yeah, you don't
violence.
Get phased until later, which kind of furthers the thematic use of the PTSD traumatic kind of experiences. And I feel like going this route kind of in the psycho-esque kind of way of not really showing the violence, I just feel that usually that works way better for me personally than the other way around most of the time.
Yeah, and it really coincides with the character itself. Like, it comes around in this full circle sense of thing of like the character and the violence itself of not being shown is also like him. And I think a lot of this, I was very sad to see the reviews for this movie and how people really ragged on the psychology aspect of the movie. Like, this is so overdone. This just doesn't feel like real. She's just ripping off all these movies. And I'm like, you don't really understand what it's like to be a person with trauma or to understand the experience, because one of the things that this film did so beautifully that you don't see a lot, especially in movies, because you have to, speak things. It's not like a book where you can like dive into a person's mind to see. You have to
show things visually.
Have to show or speak them. Yeah. And a lot of other movies that talk about trauma or things is they speak the trauma so you understand that I have a trauma, I have PTSD, I've been through all this stuff. So they speak it to tell the audience that's what's going on. I just feel like that the way that it's usually done just does not work as well. And I say, obviously it's much harder to visually convey that kind of stuff. But exactly, which is why Ramsey said, I'm going to assume my audience is intelligent and I'm not going to tell them, but I'm going to give the evidence. I'm not going to spell it out for them, but I'm going to give them the evidence to show you how much this gentleman is sitting in trauma. Yeah. And it's so well done. I mean, you see his trauma is literally like a schedule as in any other schedule of daily life. So you see how in the morning here's their spoiler. Guys, spoilers, running spoiler zone. Spoiler. I always wonder how long it's going to take. But in the mornings, like you see the routine of him trying to self-harm himself. And then into a routine of immediately into helping his mother polish the silverware. Mm-hmm. And like the juxtaposition of those two moments that are back to back, and how, the suicidal attempts he's taking and what's keeping him on the earth. And it's just relentless. It's constant. It's relentless. And I think anybody that hasn't gone through that
it's kind of hard to kind of understand that from that point of view.
But in a way, it's also just beautiful to like see this in its pure raw form. And I really appreciated that she didn't spell it out and she really gave us a character study of it. And I also liked how we weren't given a backstory. We're giving it to him in the moments that he has his triggers and his flashbacks.
Then you kind of start piecing it together. Yeah.
Which also makes it so much more raw itself.
I really did. This is something that is not just for this film, but for most films, I prefer this way of kind of conveying information. I just feel it's so much more strong.
Because we like to be intelligent viewers.
I feel like it comes off very authentic only because in a real friendship or relationship, you get bits and pieces from that person in the moment that might trigger them at that time. And that's when you learn, oh, this triggered them because of such and such, because they're not, nobody's going to just openly tell you things like this. Like people don't talk about their mental health or what's making them react to things. And it may be because one, we just don't talk about it. And
they're ashamed of it.
Or they're ashamed of it. Or it could be that
reasons.
literally it just doesn't they don't think to talk about it until they get triggered too.
Well, also a big thing is, most people don't want to burden other people with their stuff because everybody knows that everybody's going through all kinds of stuff. It is crazy. It kind of gets into my head when I watch this and kind of just thinking about these universes that are in conflict and chaos. And how many of those that we pass on a daily basis, and we have no vision of that universe.
I mean, who knew like when the little girls asked him to take the picture, that would trigger him so much.
Right.
Like that was a trigger unto itself, which is beautifully done too. And one of the things I didn't like seeing in the reviews was that when he goes and tries to commit suicide after his mother's killed, because his mother is essentially the only thing that was keeping him alive, because he's gone to such the extreme of, well, I need to save people. And then his mother's floating body switches to the girls. And a lot of people ragged on that. And I'm like, no, that's the truth of the matter, though, is like he had to change that need to protect someone from the person he couldn't protect anymore to someone new to keep him alive. And I think that was really poignant.
It was motivation to keep going. Yeah.
And ultimately what Ramsey was trying to do, which I really appreciated, was that this wasn't a hero story. This wasn't about his hero. He wasn't about him being heroic and saving the girl. And this isn't about anything like that.
It wasn't victimhood either, which I really, really apprecited. It was just, he was going through shit and just dealing with everything. And
I really appreciated
she
also saved herself, but that's not the point of it. And I really appreciate that the ending was the way that it was, which is not the ending from the novella.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So sorry to interrupt, but I have to say that diner scene ending was powerful on so many levels. It's just the relatability and the fact that the world doesn't stop if that happens, and the winds of change and how swiftly or not swiftly the evaluation of any situation can adjust with at the same time still having everything present. But it was just incredibly powerful.
And it really brings the grounding background too of that he's like, okay, well, I saved her time to commit, my
job is done. Yeah.
Is done. And then she comes around and she's like, all right, ready to go. Like, no, you still are taking care of me.
Yeah.
And so in case our listeners don't know, this is based on a novella by Jonathan Ames. I believe I'm going to get this right. I want to make sure I'm checking my notes, guys. I have tons of notes and I want to say it was Jonathan Ames. Please don't quote me on that. It is a short, Jonathan Ames. It is based on the novella of the same name. And Ramsey actually changed the end of the movie. It's not the same as the novella.
I thought the novella's title was like A Beautiful Day or something like that. And then they changed it, and it was released as that in the UK and Europe. And then in the US, it was saying they changed the title to You Were Never Really Here.
Sure. I didn't read anything about that. But sure, I'll take your word for it.
It's something along those lines. I'm not 100% sure.
The point I'm trying to make is that the ending is not the same.
Right.
And because I did read like how the ending is different, and I will admit the movie one's better in my books.
Oh, really?
So I really appreciate that. Because I think she plays up that PTSD and the whole experience. And so I really appreciated that. And yeah, I mean, just the character say, like, I've never seen something so amazingly done. Like, I reviewed this, like, gave my rating for this movie, and then ended up changing it the longer I sat with it, because I was just like, what she pulled off is just like, oh my goodness, and I can't believe it. And for how short it is. And like, as we literally, Chris and I stopped watching the movie, and we were just like, what? Like we were like,
it took a while to recover from it. It was crazy.
we had to watch the Great British Baking Show afterwards
to recover. Yeah, to go back to kind of a technical thing, I really liked how they did the underwater scene. It was, I guess they had already wrapped the shoot and they were trying to solve for what they were going to do with that. And they actually found a tank, like a diving tank, and they just put a shaft of light there and then they filmed it like that. And it worked. It's simple and it worked really, really well, in my opinion.
It was very effective. I love that scene.
It was beautiful, yeah.
And then with the mom's hair, like,
yeah.
Oh, my heart.
And since my coffee hasn't kicked in yet, if you already said this, I'm sorry. But so one of the things the director did was hand him what that...
I didn't say it.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't say it.
Yeah. So that tape that of fireworks going off and said, this is essentially what's going on in your brain 24/7.
Right.
You know,
to implement the illusion of like IEDs or bombs going off is kind of like a PTSD thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say from my perspective, general audience perspective, this film was a crazy roller coaster. I thought it was incredibly interesting how she would, similar to what you were saying, where it would be like a normal everyday thing where you're like sitting at a table and she'll show like just a normal routine. And then all of a sudden that PTSD would kick in where like we'd see something completely different, a different scene where he's doing something that's, potentially hazardous, self-harming to himself. So yeah, I just know the whole entire time I was watching that movie, I was just taken away. And the fact that they are not kidding is one of the most violent movies I've ever seen without violence. And it made it that much stronger.
Yeah.
People need to realize you don't need on-screen violence to show violence.
It's
you
just
really
insane.
don't.
Like, I can't believe like how violent I felt. Like I watched and it just...
She nailed the psychology of filmmaking. Like she absolutely nailed it. So, and then one of the other things I really liked about this film is the fact that it wasn't a hero, like, oh, here's a hero who's coming to save the day.
He's so good at what he does. He just walks around with a hammer and then he achieves greatness.
You see him and you can see, no, he is barely gripping onto life in every single scene. Barely. And then you see the trauma in the girl too, and how, she's the one that ended up saving herself, and he's not the one that saved her. He couldn't save her. But she sees his pain and she's there to help him through it. And he's here to help her through it too.
And they're a team now.
And they're a team now.
Yeah.
So I just, the ending was so powerful. They're keeping each other alive
too, because if you think about it, they're keeping each other alive because she has nothing anymore too.
Yeah.
She has now her own trauma and PTSD to come through, and they're keeping each other alive, which I think is also really beautiful.
That's why I like their countdown, because they both used it. And so it's kind of like they're in this kind of same plane of existence almost. And yeah, like you said, the ending was really, really powerful because, everything was over and she left and he's like, okay, well that's that. And then she comes back and she's like, it's a beautiful day out. And he's like, yeah, it is. And then they just go and it's just like, yeah.
And then they leave. I just love the credit part when it rolls and it's just like their table with like the milkshakes. And I don't know, that really hit me. And I was like, oh,
it was a very powerful ending for sure.
I mean, honestly, like this is a great movie to study for not only like amazing character development, doing things and seeing how sometimes you're throwing curveballs in filming, like not having the budget to show the violence properly, and using the problem solving and how that can even make a better movie ultimately because of the way that they showed the violence is just superb in this movie. And I just think it's a great movie to study, and I love that it was written and directed by a female. Yay! And
I will say that I think for some people, they would find some familiarity with the type of story to be more akin to like Taken, and there's tons of stuff like that. But
a lot
I just
of people
think that
made references to Drive.
Yeah, Drive is very similar to that because it's kind of like guy tries to save somebody or a girl tries to save somebody. It's kind of like that kind of a story, but this one just has like a different unique take to that. So it's not like it got inspiration, but it's not a copycat kind of thing.
Because I think in those movies, this is to me real life. This is really a true character study of a man that we could pass on the street today. And I think that's one of the things that makes it really cool is it's really the psychology study of the man and less of the hero saving, like we keep saying. We keep saying that a lot.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan, too big fan of, the world is ending and this person's going to save it. I definitely like more smaller scale stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of the things too is I'm curious how many words were actually spoken in this movie. I really am, because there's almost no dialogue.
See, people like to shit on movies like that. And I don't understand. Like Drive is the perfect. I love Drive. There's so much to love about that movie. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. Like from a cinematography standpoint and the framing and everything, but there's not a whole lot of talking in it. And it's, if you can understand everything from it, it's very, very powerful.
But
well,
it's the thing about movies is that the difference between movies and books is that you have this visual aspect, which is in itself a dialogue. It is a storytelling character to the
and people
movie.
don't use it enough. Like they'll make a movie, but then they'll explain everything through dialogue, and it's like, what are you doing? Like
the saying is a picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
Exactly.
And so the character, because we keep talking about character development, and the thing is, the character development was incredible because there was almost no dialogue. It was all shown to you on film, and it was shown sometimes even in the background where you couldn't even see what was going on really, but it was there.
Or even non-dialogue auditory character development.
Yeah.
You know, like there's more than just words that can define everything.
Well, because I feel like nowadays, and I don't know where this trend started coming from, but for some reason, people started thinking we had to like explain everything to the audience because they weren't smart enough to get it. And that's the thing about this movie is you have to watch it and pay attention and put the pieces together yourself. They're not just going to hand you a finished puzzle.
Well, I think that's the difference between a mainstream kind of blockbuster-esque movie that is lowest common denominator. We got to get this market, the people that invest that money into that kind of project, it's going to appeal to a wide audience, and movies like this and Drive and all these other ones that are a little bit more high concept or kind of visually less dialogue explaining is kind of different, more niche audiences, I think.
I just feel like the less hand-holding you do, the more immersive the film really does become, because you have to really dive in and focus and pay attention and see and feel what the characters are. So,
all right, so let's give a rating. Chris, I'll go with Chris this time.
All right, 9.5 out of 10.
Okay, Aaron.
I'm gonna go. I've been kind of struggling a lot with this.
Now's the final countdown.
But I'll go with 8.5.
Oh, that's actually pretty high. I'm impressed. I'm going to. I hate them. I'm gonna give it a 9.8. I feel like I've been rating movies very high lately, but I don't know. I'm just from a storytelling aspect, this movie blew my mind.
Well, I mean, okay, so maybe this is just me, but I feel ratings are absolutely ridiculous and unnecessary altogether.
They're abstract.
They're abstract and they don't really mean anything, but it's just our feeling in the moment after we get that kind of thing. I guess
for me, where ratings come in, this is kind of like how I've wrapped my head around it is, people have taste and they rely on like, you look at a movie technically more. I look at a movie more for story concept. And so, we set ratings based on how we view something. And so
I disagree with that, but keep going.
Someone who views things the same way that we do could look at our rating and be like, oh, I think I might actually like that since they did. Because they have the same taste and view and eye and like look at something. And so they're like, oh, well, since we're the same, I'm going to take his advice and go watch it now because he liked it.
Comedy is actually a great example. There's certain people I'll listen to when they go, oh, I thought this was funny. And there are other people who say, oh, I thought this was funny. I'm like, not on my list. Because
I think
we don't align.
That does make really a lot of sense for comedy, just because everybody has their particular like comedic kind of references.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's not so much we think this movie was great in the world of like rating movies. It's just in our opinion. So if someone has the same taste, they can be like, okay, well, I probably would like it too, since your opinion was high and we have similar tastes.
Okay.
That's how I view it. And now it's time, Aaron, for me to battle you out in trivia and see who's going to get the next point in our movie trivia.
Ring the bell.
This isn't a trivia. This is a stick-up, see? Give me all your gin and chocolate.
And welcome to Trivia with your host, me. And to remind everyone, what we're battling for, the stakes are, if Aaron loses, he has to buy Kate chocolate. And if Kate loses, then she has to buy him a shot of gin. So to remind everyone the scores, almost gave you the credit there. Still, caffeine has not kicked in yet.
That's okay. We can defer to that.
Caffeine's going to kick in after we're done with the podcast.
And I'll be super hyper. Yeah.
Bouncing off the walls. Probably bring out a soccer ball and kick it around in your apartment and break everything. But yeah, so Kate is up with 3 wins. You have 1 win
I do.
and 1 draw. Not that the draws mean anything, but whatever.
Yeah, we'll still count 'em.
Okay, cool. So 3 questions with a tiebreaker if you guys tie.
What's this
And
week's
you get
topic?
1 hint if
Okay.
you need it. Okay. So this week's topic is actually on mental health.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Question 1. In Finding Nemo, what is the name of the forgetful blue tang which helps Martin find his son?
Dory.
There you go. Ding, ding. Question 2. In You Were Never Really Here, the main character endures episodes of PTSD and other illnesses. What is his name? I just need the first name.
Shit. Hint.
This is literally the only question I said no hint because you should remember because we just watched the film. And I should have warned you on that one. You only get a hint on 2 of the questions. One of them's a no-go.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll pass.
Okay. Question 3. In One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the main character, Randall Patrick Murphy, was played by this actor. Oh, and you get 3 guesses. I should have said that in the little spiel.
Robert De Niro.
No.
Jack Nicholson.
There you go. All right, cool.
I will get
So
Kate.
you got 2 out of 3. We'll go get Kate now.
All right.
And I'm back. And in case you guys are all wondering, I'm always the one leaving because I like it that way. I go hide out in the bathroom, I hum a few tunes, I stick my fingers in my ear, and I just have some me time for a minute.
Psych yourself up for the challenge, right?
And just so y'all know, I did leave my phone here. So if I did overhear anything, it doesn't matter. I couldn't Google anything. I didn't hear anything. I'm just saying.
So you remember the rules. You
Yeah.
get 3 guesses.
Yes.
You get 1 hint
Okay.
for the whole game, all the questions. Okay. So today's topic is on mental health.
Oh, great. But they're
All
supposed to
right.
be movie themed. We're sticking movie themed here, right?
Oh, are they?
Yeah?
I'm joking.
You mean you didn't study your psychology 301?
No, I never took psychology in college.
I gave you that 400-page manual at the beginning of the week for you to read. You didn't read that?
No.
Okay. So here's the icebreaker that you should get this one.
Oh, God.
All right. Question 1.
Yes.
In Finding Nemo, what is the name of the forgetful blue tang
Dory.
which helps Martin find his son?
Dory.
Yes, correct. Ding, ding.
Dory. Oh, my name is Dory.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
5 seconds.
Trademark ding. Question 2.
Yes.
In You Were Never Really Here, the main character endures episodes of PTSD and other illnesses. What is his name? I just need the first name.
What? Wow. Did I really not remember his name? I watched this whole movie.
Apparently, you can't use your hints on this one.
Yes. Oh, by the way, this is literally the only question you're not allowed to use your hint on.
And I can like see the mom calling his name too in that one scene when she's in the bathroom.
You know, we talked about how there was like no dialogue in this movie. I'm pretty sure. Hey, stop cheating. You look it up, you lose.
It's not fair. Charlie.
Er,
Aaron, did you get this one?
I refuse to answer that question.
You please the 5th.
I don't think he got it. And then we get no hint. Why don't we get a hint?
We just watched the film. I'm pretty sure like 50% of the dialogue was his name.
I feel like this should be like an easy question. Like, I'm
It's
thinking
a
like,
layup.
and I know, I'm thinking like all these hard ones. And
I went too easy this week.
Martin,
Er,
Johnny,
er.
what is it?
All right. Joe.
Aaron, did you
Hello,
get
Joe.
it? Did you get it?
I did not.
Okay. Okay, Johnny wasn't that far from Joe.
No, it actually wasn't a bad guess.
Wow, that is sad that we walk away from this movie and do not know his name.
I wasn't paying attention to his name. There was so much else to look at.
That one scene where she's like, "It's okay, Joe."
Joe's such a forgetful name.
It is. Well, you were never really here.
Yeah, exactly.
I cannot believe we did not get that. I'm so...
I am not shocked because I had to look it up too because I couldn't remember.
I just love that he explains all the rules. And then we get to this question. I said, okay, I'm going to use my guess. He's like, oh, wait, by the way, there's no guessing on this question. I was like, okay, so you're just making up rules on the fly here.
Yeah, that is kind of rude.
Whoops. Good thing I'm god of this game.
Well, at least he was fair for both of us.
I made sure that he was going to do that.
All right.
All right. Question number 3. In One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
Oh, God.
the main character, Randall Patrick Murphy, was played by this actor.
I see his face. I'm failing today. It's a famous name, too. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to pull up the cover of The Shining in my head. What's his name? Aaron's going to have to cut this because I'm sitting here thinking forever.
I'll give you more props than you deserve.
And it's literally his name is on the tip of my tongue. Okay, did we get a hint on this one?
You do.
Okay.
You're not going to like it, though.
Because it's the guy playing The Shining, isn't it?
He also played in The Shining.
Oh my God.
I'm so glad that was the hint. That's hilarious.
Because it's his face is right there. Oh my God. Oh. Our audience is probably hating me right now.
About to put a time limit on you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe we should have a time limit for these.
Yeah.
Can we just no, hold on. His face is right there.
I
Yeah.
think we should have a 30-second window where we can answer.
We should, yeah. Yeah, and then
Just to keep
every
it fair on
10
both
seconds
of us.
thereafter,
If you guys keep talking, I'm not going to remember.
We're just trying to remove the dead air, for you thinking. But it is a good idea that we should implement.
All right, starting next one, we're going to impose
Yeah.
a time limit.
I think that's fair. Just keep everybody on the up and up.
Yep.
Or I don't take a minute
Oh,
on
it's
something.
right
and-
there. Oh my God.
All right, you got 10 seconds.
Wait, really? Are we really doing this?
No, I'm just trying to get you to go guess.
No, he's right there. I know. I see his face and his name, and it's right on the tip of my tongue. That's not a fair hint.
I would say that's a perfectly fair hint.
We should get the first letter of his name. Of this.
I don't think that's going to help.
Can you do that for me?
No.
No, I can't do that.
That's not fair. Your hint is crap.
I cannot break the rules.
On other trivia games, they get the first letter.
He had a particular hint that he decided for this.
Oh, because you know why he didn't give us Joe's? Because he didn't have a hint for that one.
What, for Joe?
Mm-hmm. That's why we didn't get
She's
a hint for
stalling.
that one.
Do you see this? She's stalling.
I know.
She's
yeah.
stalling time to try to.
This is already
I know
twice
better.
the amount of time that I've used up in answering any of my questions.
Or at least entertaining. Ugh. His name is
You get 3 guesses. Just throw out.
Because I know they're
just
wrong.
start throwing some out.
Because I know they're wrong.
Well, it's
Do you know they had to pay for the e noise that they used in We Were Never Really Here from Psycho? They used it twice. They had to pay £30,000 for that.
oh, interesting.
Sorry.
Great stalling trivia. Thank
All
you.
right.
We're
We're gonna have to wrap this up here.
oh my God, it's so bad. Ugh,
Okay.
I'm gonna kick myself for this.
You are.
Did you get this right, Aaron?
Yes.
Oh fuck.
Jack Nicholson.
I kept thinking Nick too. I was like, Nick.
You should have just thrown something out there. Not that
I knew it was
I would
wrong,
have given it
though.
to you for that.
I knew it was between Jack Nicholson and Robert De Niro. For whatever reason, I said Robert De Niro first.
I could not think of any of the old time people. I knew, I was it's right there, but I could not pull any of the old time people names up in my head. So
All right, so our score has been updated 2 to 3 now.
So
it's 3-2. Excuse.
Well, whatever. Semantics.
Kate has 3. Aaron has 2 with 1 tie.
I am very ashamed of myself right now.
You should be. You should
Ooh,
be.
smack talk.
Oh.
She's gonna study that 400-page manual I gave her.
Chris, remember who's actually paying for the gin? It's not me. Yeah.
I'm gonna rig these questions.
And we're leaving on that note.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Movies and Mayhem. If you like what you heard, make sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on to make sure you never miss an episode. You can also follow along with us on Twitter and Instagram at Zero Fault Films, and our website is zerofaultfilms.com. Make sure to drop any questions or comments on Twitter.